We hope that you'll tweet us our questions so that we can look down at our monitors. We hope that you'll raise hands and hopefully you're standing under a light so that we can see you. Or if not, you can elbow your way nicely, gently, to be under a light. But before we open the proverbial floor to questions, with great pride, particularly on this day, my father.
First of all, thank you all for coming here. It's really important to me that not just over the internet, but in person every year, we give people who can't give this foundation $1 million the chance to show up at a reasonably modest amount and be a part of this and feel that they are a part of changing lives and brightening futures all across the world and here in the United States. So thank you for being here. Here's what we're going to do. I want to say first, this foundation basically works on two things. Even though people ask me all the time, you have so many different initiatives and everything, we work on two things. We try to figure out, given a certain amount of money, whether it's enough or not, how to do things faster, cheaper, better, so that you actually get the changes that you set out to do. It may sound self-evident, but look at the debate we're having here in Washington about the fiscal cliff and budgets. You want to cut taxes, raise taxes, cut spending. What do you want to do? And what's the very first amendment to the fiscal sequestration? The airline deal, right? Now, you can argue that they should have started at the bottom of the economic pyramid and helped the poor kids with Head Start first. But there is an important lesson here, which is they were trying to figure out, given a certain amount of money, how can you fix this problem? This is a departure for Washington. Most of the time I was in politics, people talked about what are you going to do and how much money are you going to spend up on it, not how are you going to do it. So we're sort of in the how business. The other thing I try to do is be in the empowerment business. That's what the Clinton Global Initiative and the one we do for the American economy and the one we do for university students and one we're now about to do in Latin America at the end of the year. It's about creating a network of givers that are empowered by working with each other whom they would never have met had they not come to our meetings. And I think that's very important. And I'll just give you one example and we'll open the floor to questions. Chelsea and I just got back from Washington University in St. Louis, where we had our CGI for university students. And I'll give you just one example of an idea they had that I've got to try to find some pharmaceutical company to finance. Combined. Combined. It is one of the reasons that life expectancy for non-high school graduate Europeans, people of European descent, has dropped 4 years for women and 3.5 years for men in the last 20 years. A shocking fact. So these 4 students from Northwestern Chicago, all from, interestingly enough, Asian American heritage, but all from different parts of the country, got together and thought about this problem and designed a simple chip that they could put into the plastic top of every pill bottle containing OxyContin or Vicodin or any of these other things. And it would operate tied to the doctor's office, the pharmacist's office, the local police if you wanted, any place you wanted, to tell you whenever the prescription was being abused. If 2 pills came out instead of 1, or if somebody got the whole thing under false pretenses and emptied all the pills out and started to sell them on the street, all that information could go back. And you could do it at an affordable rate. It's a fairly simple program, to tell you this. And the chips are cheap once you get the volume up. That's the kind of thing that we're trying to unlock in the modern world and let it help us build a brighter future. So that's what we're doing. That's why you're here. Thank you very much.
I think that it's important to share stories like the one that my dad just shared. Because I think that so often young people think they're just too young to make a difference. Like Bill Gates is the model, so they need to make a lot of money before they try to make a difference. But we're privileged to work with young people through CGIU and at the foundation who are actively making a difference now. And so I think that those of us that have a platform, literally, like on the stage tonight, or virtual platforms like Twitter or Facebook, need to share those stories so that young people understand that anyone really can make a difference, and that the starting point are the questions that they're asking about the world around them, whether it be their neighborhood, or our global community. Like, what really pisses them off? Like, what do they think is just really wrong? Like the number of people dying of prescription drug abuse, or what do they find really inspiring and they want to be a part of? And I think that those of us that are lucky enough to have a platform, to have a megaphone, need to do our part in sharing those stories so that more young people can get specifically inspired to figure out how to tackle whatever it is that angers or inspires them in our world.
I think it also matters if one person asks a friend to participate in something that they have found rewarding. A lot of times we assume that everybody else makes the same choices we do every day, particularly if we know them and they're our friends, and that's just not true. We assume that everybody else sees the same world we see every day. That's also not true. Chelsea just got back from my native state of Arkansas, where she went down and spent a couple of days, and she went with a lot of young people to work at the Arkansas Food Bank, and we got a lot of hunger in this country now because of long-term unemployed. And I read the comments of the young people who went, who had never done anything like this before, and it was thrilling to them. So I think that's one thing. I think it's important that the schools, even for high school and middle school kids, have community service programs. One of the reasons I love Chelsea's school was that community service was a part of the curriculum. I actually recommended that almost 30 years ago when I was on a Carnegie Council commission for middle school. I wanted it to be a requirement in every state in the country. To date, only Maryland, thanks to Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, has made it a requirement. And so, for whatever it's worth, I think that's really important.
He was in high school. He was a senior. And I asked him why he started to do it, and he said something to me which was eerily reminiscent of something my father often says. He said, well, at some point I realized it was selfish. It just made me feel really good. I mean, he's 17, and his favorite form of community service was reading to people who could no longer read to themselves at the old folks' home kind of down the road from where he lived. And I think that that's also important, to kind of help people discover it early on so that they realize it is incredibly rewarding, and also when you do it with your friends, it can be a lot of fun, and that's what I saw at the Rice Depot. So people are having a lot of fun. It doesn't always have to be hard. I mean, sometimes it is really hard, but sometimes you just need a lot of people harnessing their energies and their efforts towards one end, whether it's packing lots of backpacks, because Arkansas actually is the most food insecure state in the country. And we have about 50 million people who are food insecure, meaning they don't reliably know where their next day's meals are going to come from. And increasingly, teachers are saying the #1 challenge are kids that are coming to school hungry, particularly on Mondays. Teachers are increasingly not giving tests on Mondays because they were noticing that kids' performances were so much worse on Mondays because kids were so hungry. So increasingly in lots of school districts, tests are being given towards the end of the week when at least kids are getting breakfast on Monday, lunch, kind of throughout the week, and if they're in a state that still has an after-school program that's fully funded, snack. Do you want to read this one? Do you want to read this one?
Chelsea wants me to answer this.
You'll
From
know
Lauren Hernandez, what's one thing you've learned from your daughter recently?
Thank you, Lauren.
Well, I've learned, thanks to my